Hey everybody, it's Jason Wood from 11 O'Clock Comics, and we are back with a look at the Marvel Previews catalog for January 2023. Most of the books will be set to ship in March 2023. If you've read superhero comics long enough, you know that no dead hero ever stays dead, so it's no surprise that we have Doctor Strange #1, which brings Stephen Strange back from the dead. He has been out of action, sort of, for the last year or so, as the Strange series featuring Clea has been going on. But that's wrapped up, and we have a relaunch written by one of Marvel's top writers of the moment, Mr. Jed MacKay, with art by Pasquale Ferry. It's month 2 of the Sins of Sinister event. You may recall last month when we talked about the #1 issues of all of these minis, that they were all drawn by Paco Medina. And in keeping with that, these batch of minis, the #2s, are all drawn by Patch Zurcher. First up, we have Nightcrawlers, #2 of 3, drawn by Zurcher, as I mentioned, with Cy Spurrier writing. This looks like a ton of fun. Keep in mind, this takes place at different points of the future. This volume, I believe, is 100 years after the Sinister era, and it features a character named Wagnerine. I'm here for it. Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants is the space portion of the Sins of Sinister event, with Storm, who was the leader of Arakko in our current continuity, is still kicking around 100 years later. Good for her. And she has got a group called the Cosmic Coalition that is doing battle with the Red Diamond. This book is also drawn by Zurcher, but is written by Al Ewing. Rounding out the Sins of Sinister this month is Immoral X-Men #2 of 3, written by ex-head honcho, at least for a few more weeks, Mr. Kieran Gillen. Also, this issue drawn by Zurcher. And this is a book that brings back a character named Rasputin IV, who was one of the breakout characters from the Powers of 10 miniseries that Jonathan Hickman launched along with House of X, which really got this whole fantastic multi-year X run going. This next book I'm taking a bit of a leap of faith on because it spins out of Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man run, which admittedly I didn't stick around for, but I like the character of Patsy Walker, so I am going to try Hellcat #1 of a 5-issue limited series, as you might have guessed, written by Cantwell with art by Alex Linz. Peter Milligan and Mike Allred are back doing what they do best, which is give us fun stories revolving around the group formerly known as X-Statics. If you're a little confused by the solicit, I understand that, because just a year ago we got Excellent #1, which was a launch of a miniseries featuring the same group, but they're back with effectively a sequel to that called The Excellent #1 of 5, and it picks up, as I believe, right where the last miniseries from a year ago left off. I love it when Marvel gives us a bit of an indie flair, and they're doing that this month with Clobber Time #1 of 5, written and drawn by Steve Scroce. Steve is someone whose work we have enjoyed on the podcast for a long time. He's done things like Maestros, We Stand on Guard, and Post-Americana in the last bunch of years. And he just doesn't do big 2 stuff very often because he has a very quirky sense of humor and a very exaggerated illustration style. But I love that Marvel's giving him a chance to play around with a team-up book featuring Ben Grimm and the Hulk. Marvel has done a good job in the last few years of giving us at least 1 or 2 books that focus on the magical side of the MU, Otherworld, Avalon, things like that. The kinds of things that we got a lot of in the early Excalibur days, for those of you like me who are nostalgic for them. And so I wanted to do a quick shout out for Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain #2, written by Teenie Howard with art by Vasco Georgiev. It's still hard to believe that we actually have Miracle Man comics on the stands, but we do. And we've got Miracle Man by Gaiman and Buckingham, The Silver Age #6 to look forward to in 2 months. I order and read the vast majority of Marvel's mutant books typically, but I did want to mention X-Men number 20 specifically this month, written by Jerry Duggan with art by Stefano Caselli, with Kieran Gillen's incredible run at the helm coming to an end very soon. I suspect Duggan will get his shot as the showrunner, if you will, for the Mutantverse, at least for a while, and I believe this arc will probably start setting the tone there. If you've been keeping up with X-Force, you know that issue number 38 is the conclusion of the current arc, where they've been doing battle with Xeno, and as you can see on this cover solicit, there is something called the Omni-Mutant, and it's a little bittersweet seeing an amalgamation Frankenstein's monster of some characters that I hold dear, most notably Beast's leg on the left. You've got Deadpool on the right, Omega Red, Wolverine, and at least they were smart enough to pick my girl Domino for the head because we all know she's the best looking of the bunch. Another previews is another opportunity to remind you all that Captain America, Symbol of Truth, and Sentinel of Liberty are both excellent books and among the best superhero comics that Marvel is putting out at present. For Symbol of Truth, we've got issue number 11, written by Toki Onyebuchi, with art by R.B. Silva. This is Sam Wilson battling the White Wolf, something that they have been setting up from the very outset of the series. I thought after this past month's giant reveal involving the Outer Circle and who was joining it, we might see an end to that bit of storytelling for a while, but it's clear now that they're going to continue with that vein, and I'm all for it. In Captain America Sentinel of Liberty number 10, writers Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, joined as usual by artist Carmen Carnero, bring us the continuation here as Steve Rogers is trying to stop the takeover of Manhattan. And get a load of this cover image that may look like the MODOK that we've known forever, but it's actually not. This is MODOK with a C, the mental organism designed only for control. As I record this, we are a day away from Avengers War Across Time number 1 hitting the stands, so I will be devouring that in about 24 hours. But right now, I want to point out War Across Time number 3 of 5. This is the first ever comic written at Marvel by Hall of Famer Paul Levitz, who spent decades as one of the major power players at DC Comics, and he is joined by one of the, if not the greatest living superhero artists in Alan Davis. This pick is probably far more personal in excitement than I would expect it to be more broadly anticipated. But nevertheless, I am stoked for Avengers Beyond number 1. It's a 5-issue limited series written by Derek Landy with art by Greg Land. And there's the rub. Listen, I realize that Greg Land is a love-hate type of artist. And if I'm being fair, he is not someone that I generally am attracted to. But despite that, I am still excited for the series because it has been a while since we have gotten a very well done, exciting story where the Beyonder is front and center. And as a child of the 80s who back then thought Secret Wars was the dang coolest thing ever, I love the idea of bringing the Beyonder back for a big brouhaha. Nick Klein continues to work wonders on Thor, and he's got a new writing partner in Torun Grønbekk with issue number 32. This looks fun because it's Thor taking on Doctor Doom. I wasn't particularly excited by the prior arc where Thor took on the Hulk, but for my money, Doctor Doom, when written the right way, is Marvel's best, most compelling villain, and so I think it's going to be a lot of fun seeing the God of Thunder up against Victor. Strange Academy Finals number 6 marks not only the end of the miniseries, but also brings to a close the wonderful 24-issue run of Strange Academy by Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos. It is indeed, as the solicit says, an end of an era. I love collected editions and own an ungodly amount of Marvel Omnibus collections, but even I have to acknowledge that Marvel is overdoing it of late. This month they have 9 Omnibus collections solicited, and very few people have either the budget or shelf space to buy that many of these 900 to 1,000 page tomes. So I'm going to point out the two that I think are most worthy of your attention. First up is SpiderMan Brand New Day Omnibus Volume 1. This is the McNiven cover. This won't be out until July. Keep that in mind. For those who are lapsed Spider-Man readers and maybe weren't reading back during the Brand New Day, One More Day era, I would say that was, for me, the last time Spider-Man was appointment reading. They published the book thrice monthly. It was a book that everybody talked about all the time, and it was written and drawn by a collection of rotating but super talented creators. The other omnibus I think is worthy of consideration if you can make it fit into your budget is the Defenders Omnibus Volume 2. We're looking here at the Al Milgrom cover. Some of you may recall that we did a deep dive on the first volume of this omnibus a few months ago in our podcast Book of the Month series. And so it's nice to see them bringing another big chunk of this run to us. This collects the OG Defenders run, issues 20 through 41, as well as the annual, and then the giant size annuals 3 through 5, and a few other throw-in comics that had these characters. But this is good quality stuff, and it's not something that you can come across very easily unless you do some hardcore bin diving. So probably something I'll be adding. We started off our look at the catalog with a Doctor Strange comic, so it's fitting that we also end with the same character. Tucked all the way in the back of the book, which was an odd choice, but nevertheless, Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise Treasury Edition. This is the current miniseries. I believe we've had 2 of 4 issues out already, where we've got Tradd Moore writing and drawing the book. And I put the emphasis on drawing because Tradd's art is truly unique. There's no one else out there doing what he's doing. And much like with Silver Surfer Black, once this is complete, regardless of whether you find the story particularly compelling, you're going to want this in the Treasury oversized version so you can marvel at the art for years to come. Okay, that does it for the January Marvel previews. It was a pretty hefty month. There's lots of good stuff, which I'm glad to see. As always, thanks for listening. Be sure to like the video and share it with your friends if you can. Also, be sure to tune in to our podcast, 11 O'Clock Comics, where Vince, David, and I wax poetically for 2 to 3 hours every episode, 6 times a month. And you can find that at any podcast catcher that you choose. Also, be sure to check us out at 11o'clockcomics.com, patreon.com/11o'clockcomics, and our Facebook group, 11 O'Clock Comics. Thanks. See you next month.